Jim Zub is a storyteller who's shaped worlds we already love, from Conan to Marvel heroes to Dungeons and Dragons adventures. And he's built new ones all of his own. He's proof that persistence and curiosity can turn creative sparks into entire universes.
This episode of The Rebel Rebel is brought to you by my book, Brand Jitsu. All right, forget brand theory. This is branding that punches above its weight. After 25 years helping artists, entrepreneurs, and businesses stand out, I wrote Brand Jitsu. Move your brand from meh to memorable. It's the real stuff, story, strategy, and sharp positioning that makes people pay attention. Find it at your favorite bookstore or online at brandjitsu.com.
Welcome to the Rebel Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargie, and here with me across the country, please welcome Jim Zub.
We're doing accents. You could tell you've known me for a long time because you say Zubkovich instead of Zub. That is the watchword right
school.
There. That's how you know. Right.
Yeah, Jim Zub. Sorry.
That's right. Zub. No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's Zub.
Yeah.
Jim, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. It is true, though. We have known each other for a long time.
Like a long time. Like how? Like
27 years.
20. Holy hell. Yes, sir.
Yeah. 1998. That would be when it.
The
room where it happened. Yeah. It's great.
What a
It's
ride.
Crazy.
Yeah. And we haven't seen each other since. So
no, we completely different people. No, I think the last time we saw each other was probably like 6 years though. So
yeah, it was a pre-pandemic comic expo, right?
That's right, at the Calgary Expo.
Yeah, you were doing like a panel and some drawings.
Drawings.
Some drawings.
Trouble. You know.
Yeah, we were doing a short film. We did like the 48-hour film festival. I can't lose this accent
now. We're gonna sweep our way through all the greatest hits of all the accents over the course of this thing. By the end of it, we'll have offended all cultures, all peoples.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
Our work is done. Well, okay, so for those of you, or for those people that are listening or watching that don't know who Jim Zub is, Jim, who the hell are you? For start off, where are you right now?
Right. I'm in Toronto, Canada. I don't know how many people you interview outside Canada. So
many.
I always say Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, Canada. It's why I teach people when they come to Toronto that if you want to sound like a local, you just sort of smash it together. It's Toronto. It's just like one word. There's no second T in it. You can always tell when they're not local when they say Toronto or something like that. You know,
that would
drove me crazy. There was that movie that Netflix I think put out called The Man from Toronto, but in the movie the guy from Toronto says Toronto, and I was just like, well, it's not legit. You go. Sorry, kid. Nice try.
5% Rotten Tomatoes.
Didn't say Toronto. That's it. That's the whole review.
Calgary is the same thing. People that aren't from here say Calgary all the time.
Calgary.
Yeah.
They put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
That's right. But you're from the Big Smoke.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I grew up in Oshawa, about an hour east of here, but Toronto was the big city. And so, we would visit family here in town. And now I've lived in Toronto longer than I've lived anywhere else. In this house where my studio is longer than the house I grew up in. So I guess I'm acclimatized now. I guess I'm in it. So, yeah.
Did I don't know that I ever told you this, but I grew up in Ajax, Pickering specifically, which is just a stone's throw from Oshawa.
That's right. That's true. Now people go there because that's the best, not affordable. Nothing's affordable here in terms of housing, but you can vaguely almost pay for a place and then fight traffic every day to go to your job.
Yeah.
If you have a normal job, but we don't have normal jobs. So.
Oh, hell no. We don't have to go anywhere.
No commuting for me, thanks. I'm driving. No, wait, I'm not driving. That's the whole point.
Well, you can take the GO train. They still have it.
Yeah, they have the GO train. There's the subway and all that stuff. Believe it or not, for North America, Toronto is pretty solid transit city. So. Sometimes I have to be told that because I don't believe it when I'm in the midst of it. But that's what I've been told, is that we're a world-class city.
Yeah, you're so angry and somebody's just like...
I'm sure the people tuning in for this podcast are thrilled to learn about Toronto's transit woes or whatever.
Yeah. Well, let's what the hell do you do for a living?
Oh,
Let's
right.
get there,
So
shall we?
I guess so. This is going to be a long one, Mike. I just want you to know that
I
in
know.
advance.
Buckle up. I didn't book anything
Buckle
for
up,
3 hours
kids.
after.
This guy talks too much. My name's Jim Zub, and I'm a writer, usually of the comic book persuasion. So this is the vast majority of my time is currently spent dreaming up stories for fictional characters, sometimes my own series, sometimes superheroes or sword and sorcery and things like that. I have previously been an animator, an artist, a project manager, and a professor. All the things.
Damn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
any titles, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that our listeners or viewers would be familiar with?
Sure. I have worked on struggling, little known books like The Avengers, Iron Man, Black Panther. I've done some work on Star Wars. I did a Batman story, Samurai Jack, Stranger Things, and then lots of sword and sorcery, including Dungeons and Dragons. And currently, I am the flagship writer of Conan the Barbarian.
Hot diggity.
Yeah, not too shabby.
Damn, I remember the makeshift miracle days. Who knew
That's
this was
right.
going to happen?
That is so that the title you're talking about is my very first published comic. I did a web comic back when that alone was shocking and strange to put a comic book on the interwebs. So this is like 2001 to 2003. I taught myself how to make comics. I hand coded the HTML on my own website, and I was posting pages up 3 times a week. I had seen websites like Player versus Player and Penny Arcade, and they were posting up these video game kind of comedy comic strips. And I decided to do more of like a dramatic, surreal little coming of age story. It ended up being about 160 pages that I did over the course of, I guess, just under 2 years.
Yeah.
And over the course of that, taught myself a lot about how to put together a website, how to put together a comic, how to force myself to make stuff on on a regular deadline.
Yeah,
and
that's tough.
Put it online. Yeah, well, that was the thing, is it was done after hours. So I had a day job. I was teaching and working at a small animation startup studio, and this was just sort of done for me on the side as a creative outlet, because a lot of creative jobs, especially when you're starting off, you don't get creative control, you don't get a lot of narrative control. And so I wanted to be able to just make something that was all my own, for better or for worse. And the warts and all, that comic taught me a lot about how comics work, and again, just the motivation to get something done. And I look back on it with a fascinating kind of fondness, because there's things I would do completely differently, or stuff I learned along the way, but I can every creative project, I think you'd agree with this, are like a time capsule. You look at it and you can remember, hopefully you remember where you were, or feelings you had, or things you're proud of, or naivety that you had in the process. And so about midway through that comic, I had been posting it online. I guess it was less than midway. It was maybe it had been happening for about 5-6 months at that point. And I took a break for Christmas. And this is a different era of the internet. This is 2001, right? So there's not social.
Wasn't it before then? Because that was at
No, I started posting it 2001. I was working on it before then, but then I actually started posting on it 2001. And I was still at Applied at that point. I was at Applied Multimedia at that point. So I'm posting those online, and I'm taking a break for Christmas and New Year's. And this is pre-social media and I think it's pre-RSS feeds. So people aren't getting pinged when there's an update on the website. They're just going to the website, they're bookmarking it. You hope they're bookmarking it, and that they come back. And if they see that it doesn't update for a series of times, they delete that bookmark, and then you're dead in the water, and your traffic will just fall off a cliff. So I posted an update for mid to late December, and I said, taking a break for Christmas, New Year's. Don't worry, I'm going to be back in January. And then I went on a weird diatribe, your classic artist kind of flogging themselves. I know sometimes the pages aren't as good as they could be, and I'm doing the best I can, and I hope you guys are enjoying it, and thank you for coming, and just this classic tortured artist kind of thing. And I got an email maybe 2 or 3 hours after I posted the update from Scott McCloud, the guy who wrote Understanding Comics, which is the
oh my god
of how the industry works. And he said, don't be so hard on yourself, it's really good. And I was just like, what is happening? So using the power of my Hotmail address, I I emailed him back, and we started up a dialogue. And the next summer, he had managed to convince me to go to San Diego Comic-Con. And that's when my comic book journey really kind of kicked into gear, because it was no longer abstract. I was meeting some of the people whose work I had grown up loving and seeing that industry with kind of, wide-eyed wonder, and realizing that this was something really creative and powerful that I wanted to be a part of. And I took the most meandering path, as we all do, but eventually was able to make it into a real job. So,
a real job?
A real job.
That's amazing, a young whippersnapper like you.
That's right. They give me all the doubloons now. Yeah. So yeah, it's great.
Dude, that's so cool. What a great origin story.
I mean, there's multiple. I think the craziest part of that is that San Diego Comic-Con. So I had moved from Calgary at that point. I was living in Halifax, and I was working at an animation studio, just barely covering my bills, and still had student debt I hadn't finished paying off and stuff like that. And I got this invite to go to San Diego Comic-Con, which, for those of you who don't know, it's this huge pop culture mecca. It's one of the biggest conventions in North America. Nowadays, the attendance is like 200,000 people. At the time, I think they broke 70, and they were like, it'll never get bigger than this. But what happened was, Scott said, webcomics are becoming a thing, and the internet's becoming more and more important to this whole scene. You should be a part of the conversation, whatever that meant. And I said, well, I don't have a badge, and I have nowhere to stay, and I gotta buy a flight ticket and stuff. And so Scott basically contacted San Diego Comic-Con. You can't really do this the same way nowadays. And he just said, this guy's a working professional. He's an animator and a teacher. And so they gave me professional accreditation. So now I have a badge. I'm a professional creator. And then he contacted some people in San Diego who live there, and they offered me couch crash space for the show. So now I had somewhere to stay. And the last piece of the puzzle was a flight, and there was no way I was going to be able to pay for that. It was like $500 or $600 or something. Yeah. And I was just like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do it. Maybe next year. And I told my older brother, who's kind of my proto nerd. He had got me into Dungeons and Dragons and comic books and science fiction and fantasy and all that stuff when we were growing up. And I explained to him that the Understanding Comics guy and I were talking, and his mind was absolutely blown. And he's like, you have to go. And I was like, there's just no way I can afford this. I've got too many other debts, and it's too scary and too difficult and everything else. And he contacted our dad. And my parents are the least nerdy people ever. They don't understand anything that I do. They're constantly fascinated in the weirdest way about what it is I do now. And back then it was even more crazy. When I told them I wanted to be an artist and an animator, my mom, she cried, because she was like, I'm going to be a starving artist.
Right. My baby boy.
Yeah. When I became a teacher, there was some legitimacy there. That was, a stable, paycheck or whatever. Yeah. But my brother called my dad and said, Jim has an opportunity of a lifetime. If he doesn't take it, he'll regret it forever. And my dad, not understanding any of this stuff at all, just put a flight on his credit card. And so I flew to San Diego, so it's like, that's why I went. And I had someone pick me up at the airport I'd never met before. And this is a different era. This is the era where there were multiple articles about like people luring people to their deaths on the internet and like all this kind of stuff.
You wake up in a bathtub full of ice.
Yeah. This is like, it was strange, and it was an amazing little adventure. And I thought, my God, I'll get to go to San Diego Comic-Con just this, one time ever, and try and make the most of it. Yeah. And I think I've been to San Diego now 17 times.
Oh my God.
I've been to over 200 comic conventions and pop culture conventions around the world. It's a very different existence looking in the rear view mirror. No and I can't say that everything happened like turn of a dime. Like it wasn't like I went to San Diego Comic-Con and then it was someone punched a card and said professional, and then it all happened. It was still a meandering and strange process from there. And I've had my ups and downs and, setbacks and all that kind of stuff. But from that, there's definitely a demarcation point where it starts to become more real. And I start to be able to, see goals moving forward that I start to grab hold of at that point.
That's really wild. Did you, like, when you were like a wee one, like, was this all you ever wanted to do?
Just a wee zub. Yeah.
Just a tiniest little zub.
Oh, just a wee zubber.
Is this what you thought?
What was the question? Sorry. Yeah, every question's going to elicit a new horrific accent. You know?
Skittly D tomatoes.
Oh, me goodness gracious.
Oh,
Lucky Charms. What's that there, Dargie?
Green clovers, Jim.
I don't think anyone, I've done probably 100 interviews, and this is going to be one of the most amazing, where people are going to be like, this is not the guy who was talking about Conan 2 nights ago. I swear to God, it's very different. Yeah.
So serious.
You bring out the best in me. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. So as a wee Zub, did you think you were always going to, like, were you going to be the writer of Conan?
No. I've had people say this to me a couple years ago. They were like, man, this must be like a bucket list for you. And I said, in all honesty, no. And they were like, what do you mean no? And I go, look, when I was a kid, I wanted to meet the people who worked on Conan the Barbarian. I thought that would be a cool dream. Go to San Diego Comic-Con once ever. My brother and I, so we would look through in the old Dungeons and Dragons modules. I'm going somewhere with this.
Wherever you want to go.
They would the old adventure modules in the front. Most of them were play tested at conventions, and so it would say, for example, I don't know, the Ghost Tower of Inverness was originally a tournament adventure at Origins or Gen Con, 1981 or something like that. And we would read that little tiny indicia text, and we'd be like, can you imagine going to Gen Con ever and playing one of those adventures, and then it becomes a published adventure? Like, that was the dream, that we would go to a convention and sit at a table and play with the people who made the thing. So where my career is at now is so cosmically far from the bucket.
Yeah.
I cannot adequately describe it to you. The very first time I got to write, a Marvel superhero, like absolute mind-blowing impossibility. The first time I got to write Conan, the first time I got to work on something official for Dungeons and Dragons, those were already stratospherically beyond possibility for this little kid from Oshawa. And so, no, the short answer, which I should have given you originally, is no, not even close. I just want to be some form of, arty nerd or I mean, I didn't know when I was in high school, I was one of the better artists in your class, but in high school, you think that means something. That is, you don't realize that every high school has 3 or 4 of those people, and they're all going to smash together at the whatever college level, and then eventually the professional level. And it all shakes out from there. And half the battle is not just, I loathe the term talent, because talent makes it seem like Tinkerbell showed up and smacked you in the nose with the wand, and all of a sudden you're like, I can draw. Like, it's just not real. Usually it's an excitement or enthusiasm that you become obsessed, and you do the thing and do the thing and do the thing, and it doesn't feel like work because you love it so much. And then you got good at it because you spent those dozens or hundreds of hours. Hopefully in ways that are productive and directed. But at some point, someone, you realize you have to put rubber to the road and like learn, whether it's self-taught or whether it's formal education or whatever process it is. You're going through that kind of stuff, and you're figuring those things out, and then you're realizing it's not just about your friends and family telling you you're the best artist they know. It's like, oh, there's actual tears here. I remember distinctly applying for classical animation at Sheridan College, which was a very highly regarded program, known across North America, and a lot of Disney animators and ILM guys had gone there. And there was this weird, if I had to be honest with myself, there was this assumption that was ascendant. Like, I would just do that because I was the best artist, or one of the best artists in my high school, and this is what I wanted to do. And my art teacher in high school told me I was great and it was all going to work. And they were so excited for me, and I applied and I didn't get in. Like, it wasn't completely gone, but I wasn't close. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what their cutoff was. If they were only taking people in the top 10 percentile, I think I was like, the B plus, and they needed A plus, and it was just like, holy crap. Like, someone told me no, like, I'm not able to do this thing that everyone else told me was going to happen, and the doors were going to burst open, and choirs would be singing or some crap, and it was a real kind of wake up call to me that there were tons and tons of people better at this than me, and that I needed to work harder, figure things out, get better. Yeah.
This feels like one of those, back in the day, and I think you probably called me out on this, because I would back at Applied Multimedia days, I would jump into life drawing and try my hand at stuff. And all of my characters had their hands in their pockets.
Well, I would never tell anyone not to do it. Like I'm not here to shame anyone for drawing.
Oh, no, but you would say, Dargie,
right.
where are the hands?
Where are the hands? Where are the feet?
And I'm just like, I suck at hands. He goes, draw hands.
Yeah, that's why you got to get better at it.
Yeah,
it's not to say that you're going to be brilliant at all things, and you're certainly going to find your strengths in those areas, but you need to be able to attack those weak points, you know?
Absolutely.
I was always scared of drawing backgrounds. I wanted to do really cool environments. And then lo and behold, in animation, I did more environmental drawing. And when I went into teaching, I taught more perspective drawing than anything else, which is surreal when I think about how much it scared the crap out of me when I was in high school. But eventually that focal point became really strong. And it's one of those ways that I can really, when I look at portfolios from people trying to break into comic books, you know, you look at their environments and you can instantly tell if they're faking it. Like they can do pretty cool character stuff, or they're copying their favorite artists, and so they've got that certain appealing series of shapes for figures and for expressions and for bodies.
Yeah.
But then the minute they put them in an environment and it looks like a kindergarten drawing, and you're like, oh, it's all just
there it is,
spackled on there, you know? And so and vice versa, the people who really have those skills, it's so obvious. You can look within seconds. And so I'm doing a 15-minute portfolio review, and the first like minute I already know, but now it's like I've got to pad it out with advice and try not to just shatter them within the first 3 minutes of the conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
tell me about
things.
The transition to writing. And actually,
Sure.
let me couch this by saying I saw you're at an expo, I'm not sure which one, but you were doing some Artist Alley stuff, which and I'm just like, oh yeah, fuck, shit, Jim can draw. You know?
I know. And it throws people off because I'm known now as this comic writer. So, you know, I started as an artist, and inadvertently I ended up doing almost every kind of position for comic book creation. So I've done my own complete comics, you know, from start to finish, drawn it, lettered it, written it, the whole 10 yards. But I've also worked in marketing and editorial and project management and coloring. My first professional published work was as a colorist at the Udon studio. Hilariously enough, recoloring reprints of old Conan comics, which what a
prescient,
bizarro, prescient kind of thing. And so that having that art background and doing those other tasks has made me much, much, much better as a writer, because I know what I'm asking someone to do, and I know whether or not they're capable of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not here to tell someone exactly how to do their job. I'm never like, unless they specifically ask me, I'm trying not to like draw over top of something or, hey, color it like this, you know, or things like that. But I can describe it and we're all speaking the same language in terms of art and in terms of publishing and editorial. And so because I've done editorial marketing, when I'm talking to marketing people, we get along great. And when I talk to editorial, I know what they're looking for, because it's what I was looking for when I was doing editorial at Udon.
Right.
And so it just makes me better at my job. But what I realized, this is kind of really important holistic stuff. When I was going to school, my vision of my future creative self was I was going to be a Disney animator, classical hand-drawn Disney animator, and I was going to work in California or Florida. I was going to work on one of those Disney feature films like a Little Mermaid or Aladdin or something, and blow people's minds that I was going to be drawing day in and day out, and I was going to be making stuff that made people cry or made them cheer in the theaters. And that was a vision that I had.
Yeah, sure.
And while I was finishing school, Disney literally did their last 2D animated feature and then shut down that department. And in some ways, it was the best thing that could have happened to that. I don't want to say ridiculous dream, because it wasn't ridiculous, but what I didn't understand was I didn't recognize the deep pitfalls that dream had. And the dream, first of all, it hinged on other people's decision-making.
Yeah.
The Disney Corporation had to give me a green card and had to hire me to work at the highest level, highest echelon of their creative output, right?
Yeah.
That I was going to be an important person in that process, that I was going to create key scenes like, you know, Glenn Keane or these other animators whose work had made me cry and freaked me out. And I had watched those, you know, how to, like the making of videos and all the back matter stuff, and been so blown away by that. And I wanted deeply to be a part of that. And so I thought that was the dream. And when the dream inadvertently was vaporized before I could even put a portfolio together and send it to Florida by way of, the mouse or whatever, because that was no longer possible. And the whole industry shifted onto 3D animation. And I really wasn't interested in that. I had to address all those things. And I know other people in similar fates, not Disney animation, but other, dreams, whatever. They don't, that very weird series of gates that they had given themselves that they had to burst through in order to be satisfied. The other part of the dream that's so stupid is, let's say I got it and I worked on a Disney feature. You're like, well, how old are you? 28, 30, 35? Now what? You technically you hit the peak of what you thought or what you wanted to do. You're going to need a new dream anyways. But what I realized was this. What I wanted was a series of things that I could achieve. It wasn't about Disney. It was about, I wanted to be part of a team, because the camaraderie and the collaboration that I saw in those making of, productions, that really grabbed me, right? I wanted to have that interactivity. I wanted to do something creative where I could have a voice and I could be a part of that creative process. I wanted to tell stories and affect people, and I wanted to, to affect people the way that I had been affected, through entertainment, media, publishing, you name it.
Yeah.
And so those are much more achievable goals, because now they're no longer geographic or company dependent. Right. And they're not someone else gatekeeping those things. You know what I mean? And so what I realized that comics provided was the creative team is small and it's focused, so we can have that tight-knit quality to it. The production turnaround compared to whatever an animated feature film is, way, way, way faster. You can produce this thing independently, or you can go to a publisher. You can get your ideas out there en masse. And if you're doing something like a monthly comic, every 30 days, you're affecting people and you're putting out material. Right. And so it achieved a lot, if not all of the goals that I wanted. And as much as I love doing art and I appreciate art, the stories were what was most important to me. Those were the things that lasted. Amazing art, you can surround yourself with it and it's beautiful, but the characters and the stories, what they represent, is what actually affected me. The quality of the art enhancing the storytelling and making it as effective as possible. But I wanted my hand on the steering wheel of choosing what those characters do and what emotional beats are being hit and when they're happening. And that is the most satisfying part of the process. And then finding collaborators, in the case of comics, these artists who are the best fit for the material. And it's not necessarily the way I draw or what I'm a more varied storyteller than I am an artist, or yes, I could potentially draw at that level, but I certainly can't do it that consistently. Yeah. And I can't do that while writing the story, and I can't do that while juggling 5 different projects. Yeah. So I would rather have, without trying to sound crass, like more output and more interactivity with people who are like laser focused on, holy crap, they're the best damn artist for this gig. And we all speak the same language, and I can draw and I can visualize my ideas and I can speak the language of the art team. And so it's all come full circle in that sense of like, I have the kind of job that I always wanted, but I never, ever, ever would have imagined it was this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You do a lot of traveling.
Yes.
For shows and stuff like that. But do you have like a favorite place that you like to go just because? And follow-up question to that would be, does that help inform some of your storytelling?
Absolutely. So I think the first time I went to Japan was 2000, I want to say 2005, maybe 2006. I was working at the Udon studio. Udon it started off as a art studio production house, creating advertising artwork and design work and comic book stuff for a variety of clients, movie concept work and storyboards and you name it. Now they're more well known as a publisher. They do a lot of Japanese art books and manga translation. They do some original stuff as well, but they used to do a lot more. And when I was at the studio, I started as a colorist, then became an illustrator, then became a project manager. And my boss, Eric, he would go to Japan for business trips and he's a gargantuan nerd, and he would be the first to say that. And he loves toys and comics and art and anime and all that stuff. And so the first time I got to go to Japan, he literally was doing a bunch of business meetings and some conferences, and he wanted me to come along both to experience it and to build my, kind of Rolodex of contacts and things over there, but also because he wanted extra suitcase space to bring more nerd stuff home. And so
bring this empty suitcase.
Oh, for real. So you have an allotment of 2 suitcases, and I had 1 suitcase for clothes and the other one was an extra bag for Eric. And that's fine. Hey man, trip to Japan. What the hell?
Whatever. Yeah,
and
it's all good.
I was so enamored with it, and I was so blown away. I know some people, they go to Japan and they're like, oh, I love it, I have to move there. And I was like, I do not want to move there, but I am certainly going to frequent this climate. I'm going to be here. And since then I've been to Japan 14 times.
Oh my God.
Including my honeymoon and a few extended sabbaticals. And one of my creator-owned series that helped put me on the map in terms of comics, in 2014, I started a series called Wayward, and that takes place in Tokyo and then broader Japan. And eventually it bounces all over the world, but it starts off in Japan. And the artist that I work with on that series, or that I worked with on that series, he lives in Yokohama. And so we were drawing upon real places and the real Japanese mythology and the way we described it at the time. And it was perfect timing because of the Joss Whedon kind of effect was in full, is that we called it it was like Buffy in Japan. So it was teenagers fighting Japanese mythological monsters. Now that everyone knows what yokai are, but at the time that was not a term that people were using in regular parlance. And so we would just say Japanese mythological monsters. And it did really, really well. And it showed people that I could write this ensemble cast of teenagers, that could write drama, that I could write action, that I can incorporate all kinds of real places and history and stuff like that in with that story. And at the time, it was the most complicated thing I had ever written. And it opened a lot of doors for me. That's when my career at Marvel really kind of took off. And I was sort of slotted in as the team book guy because I could do great interactions between characters, that I could deal with large groups of characters. And so eventually I would write Thunderbolts and Avengers. And so because they liked the way that I put together these ensembles and built drama and then paid it off, A plot, B plot, C plot, and ongoing and things like that, which culminated in being one of the co-writers of the Avengers when Infinity War and Endgame were coming out. And they did, in order to pump up the Avengers, they did a weekly event. So about 9 months in advance, we wrote this 16-part story, and then we did massive production on it. And it came out weekly as the movie was coming out for Infinity War. And so that was one of the craziest, most productive. I got to work with Mark Waid and Al Ewing, who are 2 just phenomenal writers. Mark's an absolute legend. He did Kingdom Come and the Flash and Captain America, and the guy's Rolodex is ridiculous, and I learned a ton from him. Our editor was Tom Brevoort, who's the executive editor at Marvel, and he's the longest running editor there at the company. And he was, I was one of his guys, and we were busting out this massive epic story with, I think there are 18 characters running around, 18 heroes plus slews of villains and things like that. And we're keeping all these plot lines going because it was weekly, so you could move the spotlight around to all these different characters and do all these crazy things. And the Canadian news picked it up. It was Slow News Week or whatever, and they were like, the writer of the Avengers is Canadian, and the Avengers is the biggest media property in the world. And so when that happened, I did interviews with the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail. I did the National. I did Q. I was on CBC radio, I think 8 or 9 times. It was just utterly bug nuts. That was when my grandmother figured out that I was writing stuff.
I see Jim everywhere.
Yeah, it was really, really weird and kind of amazing. And but and yet, it was like, when it was all said and done, it was an amazing experience, and I was super glad that I did it. But it was a big deal because the Avengers movie, right? And so every interview, they're like, have you met Robert Downey Jr.? And you're like, no, that's not, I'm not that part of the sausage. I'm over here, That's not how that works. The comics are sort of its own division doing its own thing, and I've had the chance to work on these media properties. Like I've done lots of Dungeons and Dragons stuff as D&D has seen this phenomenal resurgence over the last decade. I worked on Rick and Morty, crossed over with Dungeons and Dragons in an official capacity,
hilarious.
which was absolutely insane. Samurai Jack, or just a host of these other things. And whenever you get to be part of one of those, it's really special and it's really wonderful. But you are also aware the reason why Stranger Things is a big deal is because it's the biggest show on Netflix, not because you're doing the Stranger Things graphic novel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
What's amazing for me right now, and what makes working on Conan the Barbarian extra special, is that there is no current new Conan video game or Conan movie. The reason why Conan is a hot property, if you want to call it that, is because of the work we're doing in the comic. So we are at the sharp tip of the spear for people talking about the property for the first time in this way in a long time. And so, without trying to sound, it's not cockiness. I'm just saying this as more of a matter of course. Like, my story is why people are excited, and so our artwork and our comics are at the start. They're the conversation, and that feels really, really, really special instead of being sort of tangential to the broader media push.
Yeah.
And now it's like, because the comics are hot again, now there are movie conversations, or now there are new video games, and we're now not making that happen, but we are, germinating that excitement, and that feels really, really, really cool, in a mind-blowing kind of way.
Yeah.
Because it is a character that has decades and decades of history. The character's Conan's older than Superman by 6 years.
Oh.
So yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. And so to have my hand on the steering wheel of that character in that world, and to have generations of people, I go to conventions right now, and I have guys old enough to be my grandfather coming over, and like hearty handshakes, and this makes me feel like I'm 15 again. You know what I mean? Like,
love
that kind of deep, abiding fan love. That it's not all me. Obviously, there's generations worth of material and those original source material, but that you are part of that legacy and that chain, and and treating it with the respect that they feel it deserves.
Yeah,
and that is a very cool thing, right? And that is a really cool thing to hear, and the pride that I have for that is very, very deep, because I give a damn about it as well, and I want to do right by it, but also craft stories that are entertaining and engaging and surprising, not just like settle into a formula.
Do you still play Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh boy. I don't have a regular campaign, which is one of the crappy parts, but because I'm doing work professionally for D&D, I'm always got stuff on the go. So I'm play testing little adventures that I'm running at conventions right now, or I'm working on all kinds of different stuff. During lockdowns, I bought insane amounts of old classic D&D stuff. Like, that was like my retail therapy or whatever, to the point where Stacy, my wife, bought the mailman like a Tim Hortons card as a sorry for all the packages that we were getting in the mail. It was a lot. It was a lot of stuff. And I could justify it because you're like, it's research material. But but it's so I still play D&D. I'm still very much plugged in.
What's your favorite character?
That's a good question. I'm almost always, I'm the dungeon master, which seems appropriate now given my job. But when I do play, I like shit talking rogues. I like troublemakers with a heart of gold. My characters are all Han Solo-y, kind of shitheads, and thieves who probably should know better, so I love those kinds of characters. Fast mouth, faster with a knife, kind of stuff. And what's amazing is one of my favorite characters was a fast talking troublemaker this character I made in high school called Krydel, and now he is an official D&D character. So I made him. I brought him into the D&D comics. So I wrote the official Dungeons and Dragons comics for 10 years. And he became a character that I put in there. And now I can actually show you here, because it's right by my desk, because of course it is. This is an official magic card of Krydel, because they made a bunch of D&D magic cards. And he's one of the example rogues in the new player's handbook. And so I don't know if it gets any better than that in terms of D&D-ness, where you're like,
I don't think so.
and there was a weird moment when I was working on it and I was trying to come up with this character and I didn't have a name for this troublemaker. And I was like, well, I don't want to call him, my high school character. That's a little indulgent. And then you have that weird ... What are you, nuts? It's perfect. Well, you got to do it. Like, if you're not now, then when,
Yeah.
And so it was that amazing moment where I realized I could do it. And then the character, people like him. And we've had a couple cosplayers, and the wild mage character that we made as well. Max Dunbar, he's a guy out in Vancouver, and he and I were doing the D&D comics together. He's a phenomenal artist, and he designed this wild mage character that we introduced into the story. And she's also a magic card, but I guess her card's really friggin' powerful. Like, people will make their whole decks around her. So now if you look up that character, Delina, like half the search results are like people strategizing or hating that card,
Yeah.
But we got cosplay of that character as well, which is brain busting and very gratifying and very fun, Yeah, it's utterly surreal, to have these kinds of things, even in the tiniest way, kind of as part of the pop culture canon, that you're creating stuff, or you're, whatever, putting a brick in the wall of the house of ideas at Marvel. Like, that is a very fun and exciting thing to be able to do. Or for the time that you get to write some of these characters, you've got the, whatever analogy I want to use, they've given you the baton, and you got to run as hard and as as fast as you can, and make tracks. And then at some point you have to hand it off and try and be magnanimous about that, as someone else is going to take it and run the next distance, So,
Are you too old to do karaoke? Are you still doing it?
Oh, Mike. Oh, Mike, what are you trying to say? I don't do it as much as I used to.
What's your favorite karaoke song?
Oh, see, I go through phases, right?
Yeah.
So this is what's fascinating about it. I realize that it all depends on who I'm with. So if I'm with people of my generation, I would sing a different series of songs.
Mhm.
There is no point. So I was out for Fan Expo Canada was a few weeks ago. That's the big pop culture convention here in Toronto. And a bunch of people want to go out for karaoke. And like 2/3 of the people I went with, probably closer to like 4/5, if I'm being honest, were much younger than me. And I was like, oh, most of these songs are not going to play. Like, they're just not going to work.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that's timeless. Of course, you can do your whatever, Sweet Caroline and all that call and response kind of stuff. But the songs I would have normally done are going to have like zero effect on these kids or whatever. And so you kind of got to read the room, if I'm being 100% honest. But if I need a fallback, I'll usually do the Killers. I'll do Mr. Brightside, because that is contemporary enough that the kids know it. But then, it's in that middle ground where everyone kind of knows it, and you're like, great. And it plays well, and everyone can scream along and what may have you. So that's one of the ones I can usually sort of, slip into gear and blast out if I need to, or I'll do like Help with the Beatles. I try and think of the room. If you cue up Piano Man, like, you need a punch in the throat, because that's like an 8-minute song. Like, that's just, unless everyone's singing along with you,
right,
you are just stealing way too much mic time. So I'm like, okay, 3 minutes, perfect. 5 minutes, great.
Mm-hmm.
Past that, you start to get a little bit of the stink eye, unless it's something we're all down for,
Yeah.
And so I try and be like, I'd rather come in with a 3-minute song that everyone loves and then get off the stage quickly than be like, all right, everyone, it's time for Stairway to Heaven. And you're just like, oh my God,
why?
Or whatever 12-minute, remix of Ozzy or something, just like Mama, I'm Coming Home, or what. You're just like, come on.
Yeah. I love that you think so deeply about your craft.
Well, I do. I know it sounds crazy. I was trying to explain it to someone.
I love it, actually.
I have a good karaoke little anecdote here. So years and years ago, one of my favorite conventions every year is called Emerald City Comic Con. It's in Seattle, Washington. It's an amazing show. Back before conventions were every damn week of the year, it would usually signal kind of the kickoff to convention season. Usually it was in March. And you were like, all right, you've been laying fallow for January and February. Get your ass up. Let's start moving again.
Yeah.
And so by the time you would get to September and you would do those last couple conventions, remember, now it's all year round, but at the time it would usually peter out in September. You'd be sick of people, and you'd be sick of your fellow peers in the industry, and you'd be like, why don't you all piss off? I'm going to go get some work done and then have Christmas, But then you get to January and you're like, I miss people. I miss my friends. I miss the industry. I have hope and spring is in the air. And, and so all of a sudden you'd hit March and you'd be like just exploding with energy. And we would go to Emerald City Comic Con and everyone is looking for work and everyone is hunting for popularity and excitement and trying to very peacocky and, all this kind of stuff. When I was starting out, there's the con. It's less of this culture now, but this is, early 2000s. There's what you've probably heard the term BarCon. So there's the convention and then there's the convention after the convention, which is usually at the hotel bar where all the guests are staying and whatever. Or you're going off to the industry parties. And when I'm starting off, you don't get invites to the industry parties. So you just inevitably end up sitting there drinking very expensive hotel beers and hating yourself. And so there was a group of us hanging out. My buddy Charles Soule, who's now New York Times bestselling author Charles Soule of Daredevil and Star Wars fame. But at the time, he was just a schmuck like me. And so we were hanging out and he loves to sing. And he was like, we should do karaoke. And I was like, why? And he goes, because it's better than sitting here feeling sorry for ourselves. And I was like,
fair,
good point. Because then you have a focal point. You're not just going to a different bar and complaining about how you didn't get to go to the parties.
Got something to do.
Look, either we should buy some booze that is cheaper and drink it in someone's room so we're not spending whatever crazy amount on each beer, or let's have a task. And this task is going to be singing. We pulled together a group of us and we went out for karaoke and we had a phenomenal night. We forgot all of our, depressing, oh, woe is me, the creative industry doesn't see my genius and all that kind of shit. And we had just a phenomenal night. And this was like it was Thursday night of Emerald City Comic Con. And when it was over, we sort of like did the joke of like, all right, same time next year. And everyone goes, yes, and you're like, all right. And a year later, we did it again. And, twice is what could be a pattern, but usually it's just a coincidence. And then 3 times is, it's
definitely a pattern.
It's a thing we're doing, like, and then you can call it a tradition, once you do it 3 times or 4 times or whatever. And so the funniest bit of business was, I remember, God, this must have been 8 or 9 years later. I'm out for dinner with one of my Marvel editors and a whole group of other freelancers, and all this Marvel luminaries of comics and all this stuff. And we're having dinner together. And I look down and they're like, who's getting dessert? And I said, I'm going to just cover, my beers and whatever, because Marvel was covering the meal.
Yeah.
I got to bounce because I got another thing tonight. And one of the editors looks over and goes, oh, we know about your elite VIP karaoke party. Because we had built this group now that every single year we would go to karaoke and we would find like-minded people who wanted to sing and were having fun and, whatever we would joke, like sacrificing souls on the altar of rock. And like, they had the right headspace and they had the right attitude. They would sing along, but they weren't like hogging the mic. They were fun. And they weren't just there to like talk and, whisper into a beer and not actually cue up a song. They were the right people with the right attitude. Yeah. And so we called our little perfect karaoke group. And this was our little karaoke strike force. And but all these people were writing Batman and Superman and Avengers and Captain America and Wonder Woman and the top artists of the industry. But they were also our people that we had made over the last 8 or 9 years. Wow. And suddenly we were the jerks that were the industry people, the party that people wanted to go to. We were the gatekeepers now, baby. And so it was the coolest, weirdest feeling to realize that we had just done our own thing and suddenly it had become a thing. You know what I mean? And there was something really fun and joyous about that. And some people were like, I wanted to invite to the karaoke party. I'm like, look, it only fit 12 people in the room. You didn't make the cut. Go make your own traditions. Like, do your own thing now,
Come on, kid, you're bothering me.
But I mean it though, like, anytime I hear people kind of caterwauling about not using the word caterwauling, there's a word they shouldn't use. But anyways, like an old man, they're caterwauling.
You must be a writer.
That's right. No, but if they're going on about how whatever they don't get their shot or no one's paying attention or whatever, you're like, you literally just have to create your own creative circle. Like the people generation, of creators. When you're starting out, you're all at that same position. You're trying to make things and you're trying to build stuff and you're trying to learn. And if you have a circle of people who are both critiquing each other and giving feedback and giving attaboys and, pat you on the shoulder when you don't get the gig and let you know if this publisher's, got a bad editor or this convention will screw you over, that circle becomes really, really valuable. And one
Yeah.
of you will break through to the next level, and then everyone sort of catches up and then break
Yeah.
and then break them. Some people will fall away and other people will reattach and, things like that. But that those people who have been through it with you, they get it, and then eventually suddenly someone is looking at you and saying, oh man, I wish I could be, like I would have these guys come over. I think sometimes, I don't know if you know this, but some nerds don't have great social skills. And
What?
so I'm at a convention and a guy comes over and he's got this maniacal look on his face and he says, next year I'm going to be where you are. And I was like, I hope not, because I'd like to have this table again next year,
Very nice.
you
Charming.
know, trying to, sort of, no,
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm going to have my own book and I'm going to think of that. I'm like, that's great, man. I'm really excited. You wait and see. I'm like, okay, like, what do you want me to tell you? No or yes? Like,
Yeah.
what would you like the correct response to be? And the reality is, there are more outlets than ever before. And there's more, crowdfunding is the kind of thing that I wish had existed when I was starting out. And now you can fund your own project independently instead of having to dig into your own life savings to pay for a printed book or, go to your first convention or what may have you. But that doesn't mean that whatever. I've never prescribed to the notion of like destiny, where it's like it has to happen because the romanticized view that you are the chosen one or some crazy shit like that. In fact, a lot of my fantasy stories and a lot of the narratives that I do tend to be about people who think they're going to be the chosen one and then get their teeth kicked in, and
Skull kickers.
skull kickers, so stuff like that. I feel like that's, yeah, very much at the heart of kind of my thought process as well.
Yeah.
That a lot of the characters that I write tend to be, um, they're the heroes they didn't intend to be, or they get put in over their head and they have to figure themselves out because it comes from an honest place.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What is the one thing that you wish the world knew?
Whoa. The one thing that I wish the world
The one
knew,
thing. You only get one.
that if we spent more time telling stories and listening to other people's stories, that the world will be a much better place. Because storytelling is knowledge and empathy, it's joy and emotion. It's something very, it's how we understand the world and we translate it and we give it to other people. And whether those are memories and anecdotes or those are completely fictional things that exemplify our beliefs or fears, that they're very human, um, and they can change things and they can improve the world and communicate a hell of a lot.
Love that.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Oh, chills. I like stories. I like
Yeah,
them.
me too. I'm
Yeah,
kind of obsessed with them.
yeah, a little bit. What's something that you do just for Jim? What's a Jim fill my bucket thing?
It's interesting. When I was growing up, my mother's a really good cook and my grandmother's a really good cook. My aunt's a really good cook, and I was around these women who were just phenomenal. My aunt in particular, she was not only, she was working a day job like in an office, and she would come home like, kick off her heels or whatever, and she could whip up these insane meals. I lived with my aunt and uncle for a year and a half when I was starting school in Toronto.
Yeah.
And made it look effortless, and their ability to be good hosts and be great cooks really inspired me, but I was intimidated by it. Inadvertently, having a mom who was like a stay-at-home mom who was such a good cook meant that I didn't learn how to cook. Like I should have been paying attention.
Right.
And in some ways I was totally amazed by it, but never enough to actually do it. God forbid, that would be stupid. And so I moved out on my own and I was a horrific cook. I couldn't cook anything, but I always wanted to. And I would, come up with a series of things that I could cook without killing myself when I was in college. And when I eventually moved out on my own, I would occasionally add a small new, nuance. You're like, ooh, I can make the spaghetti that's slightly better than just out of, pour the sauce right out of a can or whatever. But honestly, after I got married, I started to take it. One of the ways I tried to woo the woman who became my wife was to cook meals. And she thought I was a good cook. And I was like, man, I'm bullshitting all the way here. And then eventually I just kept adding that to my repertoire. And so during the lockdowns, I went berserk on it. It was my escape from everything. I wasn't looking at the news. and I wasn't thinking about how we were all doomed. I was just focused on
bolognese.
I was focused on whatever the task was, and there would be a distinct measurement. If this tastes good, it's because I made it in the moment, whether I'm making pasta from scratch or I'm, meatballs or whatever, roasting a turkey or, doing all these things, sometimes things I'd never done before. I would watch 3 or 4 cooking videos on YouTube, sort of amalgamate. I like that technique. That seems like something more what I would do. I got those ingredients downstairs and not the other ones. And so I would put together these plans, and then I would just lavish attention on these meals as a way. It was almost like a Zen for me. Sure. And I still find it very, very therapeutic. And I can think, like, my subconscious is chunking away on a story problem or on a email I don't want to have to write or something like that. But I'm not in the immediate moment stressed about it. I'm just thinking about, okay, it's lasagna time, or it's whatever it's going to be, and let's make this as amazing as it can be. And I think at first my wife was like taken aback. I would do all the little decorative bits. I would try and plate it to make it look like a restaurant. And she
wipe
would be
it.
like, yeah, it's just the two of us, and I go, I know, but it makes me happy. And she goes, I'm not a foodie like you are. I hope you don't mind. I'm not as necessarily, freaking out every single time. And I was like, I know. But then, despite all that, every so often I would do a meal and it would be so fucking good. And her mind would be blown and she would be raving about it. And if I could make her someone who is not ostensibly, that she could probably eat the same meal 4 times, 5 times a week and not like sustenance in body, keeps breathing.
Michael Crichton, lunchtime. Got it.
Yeah. Very, very simple. And if I can make something where she's like, oh my God, and she can't stop raving about it, the victory is so much sweeter for it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even give a shit and you're losing your mind. Like, it's like that. That is a particularly, sometimes I'll have friends over and I make a meal that I think is like kind of shitty. And they're like, my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, stop it.
I got to tell the world.
It's not even that good, but I know when I've done really well, like last year.
Yeah. What is it?
So we've got a butcher in our neighborhood and I go there almost every week. And so they know me really well and I'll pick out cuts of meat, all that kind of crap. And I worked as an assistant butcher one summer. So I also know how to prep and do all those kinds of things. And they didn't have their regular steaks. They were all out of them. And it was coming up on Valentine's Day. And I was like, guys, I really want a good steak, like a ribeye or whatever. Why don't this dry age? Normally it costs like twice as much, but you're our guy. So we'll just put it in like it's the regular price. I was like, great. And I brought this thing home and I cooked this thing to perfection. And again, she's not like a hardcore carnivore. She's not like a big foodie. And she took one bite of the steak and she looks at me and she goes, holy shit. This is one of the best pieces of meat I have ever eaten in my life. And she and I have been to Kobe and had Kobe beef, like,
the bars,
grade 5 Wagyu stuff, like, and that this was like on par. It was that good. And we both were taking every bite, just looking at each other like, I love you so much. I love you. Oh my God, this is so good. After this is over, we're just going to lie on the couch groaning, but Jesus Christ, in this moment, we have transcended time or whatever. Whew.
Oh,
it's good. It's good. Yeah. Cooking. That's one thing.
All right.
Sometimes.
There's these people in the world, Jim, and let me preface this by saying I could talk to you for hours. It's been way too long since we chatted.
It's true.
We'll have to have a part 2 at some point. But I was thinking about this guy that came up to you and was saying, "I'm going to be like you next year."
Yeah.
Or maybe he was more mousy. I don't know.
I actually have a panel. So Katie Cook, she did My Little Pony Friendship is Magic or whatever. And we've done a panel almost every year at Emerald City Comic Con called Convention Horror Stories. And every year we've got a half dozen of these crazy anecdotes that we'll tell each other. It's weird as a panel. We don't take questions. We barely acknowledge the audience, really. We're just making each other laugh and telling stories that you're not supposed to tell until you've had your 4th pint or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's one of those, but like I have way more crass, like horrific ones, but that one's very mild. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'm thinking about this guy, whatever. And I'm not going to say that this person is in fact a rebel in waiting. But I'm going to suggest that there's these people in the world that are deciding to do a thing. They're deciding to get outside of their comfort zone. they're going to push to do this thing they've never done before,
Right.
or they've wily coyoted it right off the ledge. They've looked
Yep.
down and the uh-oh sign comes up.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for those rebels in waiting to help them get to where they're going?
Sure. So the hardest and easiest thing is that no one will pay you to do creative work until you do work worth paying for. And so you have to build a body of work. And at first, the work that you do is going to be derivative, and it's probably not going to meet a professional standard. And
Right.
Most people will stop at that point. They will, if they have any taste at all, they will look at their work, they will compare it to the stuff being published or produced, whether that's film or music or acting or whatever, and they will say, I am not as good as my favorite fill in the blanks. Therefore, it's not going to happen. Therefore, I'm out.
Right.
And the reality is you have to keep doing, and you have to keep doing, and you have to keep building. And it is very, very, very hard to do, because if you have the taste to want to aspire to create whatever, comics or games or movies or whatever, you know what good stuff looks like, and more importantly, what it feels like. And your work does not feel like that.
Yeah.
And the ability to get those small victories. Hey, I finished a thing. Hey, I learned some shit. Hey, I've made, new relationships, or taken my blows and walked away, licked my wounds, and learned something from the process, and will come back more knowledgeable than before and more capable than before, is the thing. Like, staying in the game is the game. You know what I mean? And now you can find those successes outside of standard publishing and distribution and film festivals or any of those things. The YouTube economy, people creating entire careers of fame outside of the standard echelons of Hollywood, right? And then in some ways, Hollywood, begging for their input or engagement because of the virality of it all. That is not to say that views are everything, or that fame is the end goal of this stuff, because I don't think that it is. But the ability to steadily produce and create, I don't aspire to like the Stephen King, you must write every day or you're not a writer kind of thing. But I do feel there should be regularity to the output, that you need to be working towards those goals.
Yeah.
And I know that people say, hey, but I've got a really tough day job, and I have kids, and I have, 14 dogs I have to take care of, or whatever other things are happening in your life. And the reality is, the people that are doing the thing that you want to be doing, they carved out some time to do it. I'll give you an example. So there's a writer named Cullen Bunn, and he had raising a kid and got to pay the mortgage. I believe he was working at a real estate office, and he would set his alarm, and he woke up in the morning, and he would write for an hour before the rest of the family woke up. And then he would make breakfast and get the lunches together for the kids, and then go to the office. And when everyone else at lunch would go out and grab lunch as an office, he would write for an hour during his lunch hour with the sandwich. And then when he got home, he would spend time with his kids and do all those things he had to do. And they would go to bed, and he would spend an hour writing.
Wow.
And 3 hours a day is, a part-time job. And he's putting in 3 times 5, 15 hours a week. Plus, if he can steal some hours on a weekend, he's got a part-time job. He's a writer. He's taking it seriously like a writer. He's producing like a writer. He's got regularity like a writer. And he's putting together work. Would he love to write for a 4-hour block? Of course he would. Of course. Would the work be better for it? Absolutely. But because he was stealing those little hours here, there, and everywhere, he's producing. And that made such a huge difference, because I noticed that Cullen was putting out work on a regular basis, and the work was good. You know what I mean? Like when I started doing Makeshift Miracle, and I'm doing it 3 times a week, it's not mind-blowing stuff, but just the regularity of having done it. When we started doing Skull Kickers at Image, and I was forcing myself to do a monthly comic, there's an artist and a colorist and a letterer whose mortgage is getting paid based on whether or not we produce this work. I got to sit down at my keyboard and write the damn story. And I can't fool myself that this is, other people are relying on me. And that kind of, in my case, it was motivation to keep me rolling and keep me, regularly putting stuff out. And so people will say to me, they go, "Do you have writer's block?" And I go, "Yeah, sometimes." The difference now is, okay, this is humble brag, but here we go.
Ready
You
for
see
it.
this shelf here, this
Yep.
bookshelf, the smaller one.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, it continues off camera. Those are all my books.
What?
Yeah, those are all books I've written. So
Oh.
some of them are foreign editions, or they're like omnibuses or collections.
I've
No, it's great.
one book.
It's awesome. No, it's good.
I've
It's good.
one.
But I've written about 80 books, and then there's foreign editions, and then collections and all that stuff. And that doesn't count the single issues that go into the collections and things like that.
Gotcha.
But that shelf is all me. And the very first time I had one book to put on a shelf, and then two, and then three, and then half a shelf, and then a full shelf.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going from there. So when I get writer's block now, I don't think, "Oh shit, I can't do this." What I think is, shit, here's the part where I try and convince myself I can't do this. But clearly I did it. I've done it a whole bunch of times. And those times I felt just as fucked up and not capable. So clearly I can do it. So I just have to defeat this thing once again. The difficulty is you have to defeat the thing the first time.
Right.
And prove that you could do it. And then from then on, it's just like, "Oh, my old friend, you've returned." The Obi-Wan versus your Vader kind of, here we go, let's go to it. And that's the difference, right? So I'll definitely go through these moments where the muses aren't kissing my fingertips and things like that. But your ability to produce at a professional level, even when your whole body and mind and soul is trying to tell you can't do it, that is part of whatever, being a professional, if you want to call it that. And when the muses are kissing your fingertips, when the lightning is ripping through you, you are so thankful that one of those moments is happening that you ride it for all it's worth. And then you're like, "When's that coming back?" And it's never as much as you would like. Yeah, you're like, that's the stuff. That's when it feels so pure and real. And you beg for those moments. And when they come, you were like, there's literally times I've been down at the dinner table and I've said to Stacy, like, I got this look on my face and she's like, "You're just going to eat and go." I'm like, "Yep, got to get back. I'm feeling it right now. Like it's happening." And she goes, "Just ride it out." She gets it. She's a writer as well. So it's a very special thing when you have it. So I've had some of those weird moments where we've been at a convention or whatever. And it's like, I'm supposed to be heading off to the con. And I'm like, I got an extra hour. I got to blast this out right now while it's in my head. And you sort of call like, "Hey, go man the table and tell them whatever. I'll be there. I promise." But yeah.
Do you carry a notebook with you? Do you capture lightning in a bottle or no?
Yeah. Well, so now I usually just type. I've got like the notes thing on my phone, so I'll just type a little line out or a little reminder, a weird phrase or a word. I'll hear a conversation and someone will say something in such a spectacular way, and I'm like, gotta take that down.
Yoink.
Yep, zorn. That one's really good. Or a little bit of lyricism, especially now that I'm doing like Conan. So Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian, is such a phenomenal vocabulary and his very particular cadence. And I have so much more appreciation for it now, having written more and more, trying to capture that and not just copy the way that he did things.
Right.
And now I feel much more excited about just interesting, it sounds weird to say phraseology, or just like amazing vocabulary, or the way a rhythm in a series of words can create something in your mind or accentuate the artwork that's on the page. I have so much more appreciation for the way that art and the text is interplaying in a really good comic. And when someone does it well, I know why it's working. And if it's not working, like, "Oh God, they were so close," or "They could have done this," or whatever. But that's part of the craft that haunts you in the good and the bad ways. I'm always reading new stuff. I'm always excited to find new artists and creators who are doing things and blowing my mind, and usually doing it at an age that's much, much younger than when I figured it out. And I was like, "Damn you.
Get off my lawn, kid."
Yeah. Every so often I get there's all these people of our generation who are they're in their midlife crisis phase, and they're posting all these memes about how we're the great generation because we got to ride around on BMX bikes and we didn't have the internet or something. And you're like, just shut the fuck up, because we're now those people who just complain about the youths, and you're fools. And from what I've seen, particularly since I taught for 20 years, the kids are all right. Like, hell, they're drinking less than we are, and they're more concerned about politics and the environment than we ever were.
Yeah.
and they actually give a damn about their fellow human being, and we were too busy just obliterating our livers. So like, I'm not saying they're all angels and everything's going to be okay. I think the world's in a very precarious and messed up state, but that's
Sure.
more our fault than theirs.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm always fascinated to see the new art trends or new movies or new exciting pop culture stuff, even if I don't get it. In some ways, that's the most maddening part. If I see some new
You're right.
pop culture thing and I'm like, what are these children doing? You know, why do they like this? You know, and I have these moments where I'm like internally raging because I don't want to admit that I'm out of touch with the current state of pop culture. Or so I think the thing that always makes me laugh is when I see some entertainment article and it's like some musician is having a beef with some other person and I don't recognize any of the names involved. And then I look one of them up and they have like 4 billion views on YouTube, and or they've been on the Billboard Top 100 for like 87 weeks. And I was like, I don't even know who Little Buddy Bop Bloop is. What the fuck is this? Like, that's crazy. I had one of those a couple years ago where they were talking about the song of the summer, and they said, they were like, it's this summer's Dance Monkey. And I was like, the fuck is Dance Monkey? And then I looked it up, and this thing had I think it was like 500 million views or something on YouTube, and it was like it was number 1 or something for a stupid number of weeks. I was just like, never even heard of it. Shit, you know. Like,
I'm so out of touch. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. And
yeah.
You know, it's cool.
I'm now settled into my old man pulp writer phase, so it works pretty. Once you're working on Conan, you're like, my core audience is 40 plus anyways. There are some of the youths that are into it or whatever, but the majority of them are old crusty guys who wish they had a sword. So it's like, you know, I can settle into that.
Do you bang it out on an Underwood?
I do not bang it out on it. But I will tell you a crazy thing. Last summer, I went to the Robert E. Howard Book Festival, which is in the town where he lived most of his life and passed away. Population 1,000 and falling. This little town called Cross Plains in the middle of Texas. And we got in a day early before the festival, and the 2 little ladies who run the museum, they opened it all up for us so we could film some documentary material. And I sat at his desk. And that was mind bending. We were doing a bit at one point. They were filming me. The room is so small, Mike. It's like really, really tiny, where he created all these phenomenal, you know, stories. And the director's like, okay, talk about the creation of Conan. And I was like, when Robert E. Howard created Conan, and he goes, no, this is where it happened. Say it happened right here. I go, when Robert E. Howard created Conan, right where I'm sitting right now. And he goes, don't pause like that. I go, dude, it's kind of blowing my fucking mind. I'm right there. It's very strange. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a very surreal kind of a moment. But yeah, I'm more comfortable, like you said, not necessarily knowing every Naslo thing, but there is still these vestiges of like, what are the kids like? Why do they like that? What is happening? Yeah, sure.
Where can people, stalk you is the wrong word, but where can they, keep up with the comings and goings of Jim Zub?
Where can they figure out how to be where I am next year? No,
next year.
Right now. No, everything is at jimzub.com. So it's just JIMZUB.com. In America, that would be ZUB, end of the alphabet. And so that's the website where everything is. My social media is all linked on there.
Sweet.
Full rundown of my books and my career. I imported my old live journal archives into there. So I have 26 years worth of material, including when I was teaching and when I met you. And so people can read through little posts where I'm like, gosh, I hope people like me and all this sort of stuff, as I'm heading to my very first convention or wondering whether a creative career is the right one for me. So, but I also have about 40 articles, free tutorial articles listed on the right-hand side about how to write a pitch for a publisher, how to work with artists, what an editor is looking for, all sorts of other stuff that I figured out through just bullheaded stupidity and then wanted to save other people the difficulty.
I love it. Jim, this has been way too long in coming. And I can't thank you enough. This has been such a blast for me. It's like, I don't know. It's like we just saw each other yesterday.
Yeah, man. There's always this people who know you through multiple kind of eras of your life. There's always a warmth there when you reconnect with them and you realize, things are the same. and yet they're not.
Yeah.
You know, there's sweet little elements they carry on though. It's great.
I love it. I've had so much fun. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Hey, if you're an artist, scientist, entrepreneur, or business owner who wants a smooth and proven method to find, shape, and share your story with the world, head on over to brandjitsu.com and order a copy of my book, Brand Jitsu, Move Your Brand from Meh to Memorable. I've been your host, Michael Dargie, and this has been the Rebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, head on over to therebelrebelpodcast.com and fill out the guest request form. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.